Also, now talking about the IVF as a product in India, do you think that it is becoming quite a missold product in India, and why?
Yeah, so like I said before, we're one of the first few IVF clinics, and we spend a lot of time in educating patients what IVF is. And if you think about it, IVF is one of the best branches in medicine. It's one of those branches where you use a great combination of technology to do things which wasn't possible otherwise. Therefore, there's a lot of science, there's a lot of everything else. There's a lot of medicine. Obviously, there's a doctor. You need to actually give the injections, take out the eggs, the surgery, the procedures. There's a lot of applied psychology. You have to be very compassionate because all these people, their hearts are breaking, marriages are breaking, everyone else is having babies and they can't have a baby, major self esteem issues, spills over into other parts of their life. So it's a great combination. And then when you give them a baby, you've changed the lives of so many people. Think about it. You're a heart surgeon, you're operating on a 70-year-old man. Maybe he'll live for another 5 years more. Add up the quality of life index. Whereas when you give these babies, these are deeply loved babies. I mean, these babies have such a head start, not because I've done the IVF, but because their parents are going to dote on them. They really care. Otherwise, हाँ ठीक है, घर खरीद लिया, गाड़ी खरीद ली, बच्चा होता है, बड़ा होता है. These babies are the apple of their parents' eyes. So the baby has a life expectancy of 80 years. Each of these parents has an additional life expectancy of 50 years each. They're typically 30 or 40. Just imagine how much value you've created. And I think that's what's really so dramatic as far as IVF goes. And that's why we were so excited. And we spent a lot of time. Now, unfortunately, what's happened is it's become so commercialized and so corporatized. And that's the problem with all these VCs and these PE players. Because they're looking at, okay, we've given you the money. We gave you 100 crores to 100 crores. You started off with, let's say, 5 centers. What is the total addressable market? I hate that word. I mean, you use education as a business and a market. You use IVF as a market. I think that's just terrible. These are human beings whose hearts are breaking. You don't care about that. You just care about what's the wallet size. तुम उससे कितना पैसा निकाल सकते हो. The moment you start using words like that, it's all gone for a toss anyway. So that is it. There are so many millions of couples in India, of which 10% are infertile. Therefore, your total addressable market, you only tapped 1%. Therefore, there's potential 99% growth. We're going to go after this market, all that good stuff. We're going to use technology. We're going to go into underserved areas. We're going to do this, that. Sounds very good. You say, it's very easy to sell the story because guess what? You're a VC. You have a lot of money to pay for press releases, media conferences. So your figurehead of your private company, which you funded, will get invited to give all the keynote lectures, will get invited to act on the national ART board, because guess what? He's influential and he has money. I'll come back to that afterwards. Big scam. A lot of these things will then just continue doing. So then once they start, then now you've got 5, then how do we double the throughput for each of these things? How do we double the number of clinics? Then it's like a cookie cutter approach, rubber stamp hai. No one really cares. अच्छा अपने को 5 embryologists चाहिए, train कर लो, 5 निकाल दो, ये कर लो, वो कर लो, equipment खरीद लो. All a scam. And I'll tell you why. One simple thing. The only thing an IVF clinic can do is make embryos. Just some brief background. What do we do in IVF? It's no black magic. It's what is not happening in the bedroom, we do in the laboratory for 5 days. We take the eggs, we take the sperm, we make an embryo, and after we made the embryo, we put it back in the woman's uterus. So that hopefully it'll implant and she'll get pregnant. Lots of ifs and buts and complexities. I'm just simplifying it. But the problem is that whether you made a good embryo or not is something which can only be judged if you actually give a photograph of the embryo. This should be a no-brainer. तुम रेफ्रिजरेटर खरीदते हो तो तुम वारंटी कार्ड लेते हो, तुम गाड़ी खरीदते हो तो तुम ये लेते हो. All this should be documented. And this is such a simple thing to document. It's a global best practice, and every microscope in every IVF lab in the world comes with a camera. So there's no reason not to take photographs of embryos. None of these clinics take photographs of embryos. Now you tell me why. Now the very fact that you're not taking photographs means दाल में कुछ तो काला है. तुम कुछ तो छिपा छिपी कर रहे हो. You're not sharing medical records. Medical records are the patient's property. You're not sharing with them. You're lying to them, which means when the cycle fails, you're blaming the patient for the failure. And you can get away with any rubbish. तेरे अंडे खराब थे, तू बुड्ढी हो गई है, तू अभी donor egg कर. And the beauty is to donor egg कर, तो मैं और तेरे से पैसे charge करूंगा. You lock them in. So I'll give you some chain of this thing. Step number 1, you start in a new town. do all the band, call the minister, do this thing, put all the ads in the papers, and run a free infertility camp. फ्री इनफर्टिलिटी कैंप है, कोई भी आएगा, सबके फ्री इनफर्टिलिटी कैंप को, और सबको डिस्काउंट दे दो टेस्टिंग का. ग्रेट यार, करना तो है ही, माइट एज वेल गो. सासू बोलेगी बेटी अभी शादी को तो 6 महीने हो गए, बहू अभी तक बच्चा नहीं हुआ है, तो एक बार चेकअप तो कर लेना. चेकअप करने में क्या है? फेयर इनफ. Cost of customer acquisition. But these are not customers yet, you'll say, these are just couples. Now, you do a semen analysis for every husband who comes and you report them all as abnormal. Beauty, simple. Guess what? A semen analysis is a very simple test to do, and therefore it's very simple to do badly. And you report all these tests as having abnormal sperm morphology or teratospermia. I have yet to see a semen analysis report from any of these IVF corporate chains which is not reported as teratospermia. And let me tell you, some of these guys have babies in their bedroom. So I always tell, so patients come to me with this report. I say it's all rubbish, not teratospermia. Because ideally to report as teratospermia, you should give a stain slide of the sperm morphology. तो कोई भी देख के बोल सकता है कि सचमुच है कि नहीं. कुछ करते नहीं है, सबको रिपोर्ट abnormal करते हैं. तो ऐसे तो बस बहुत ज़्यादा पैसे है ना. You take 5 of your friends who have 2 babies each, और तू सबके semen analysis वो कर, और सबके abnormal आएगा. Okay, forget about it. So this is just the tip of this is how the scam starts. So now, अरे यार इतने साल बच्चा नहीं हो रहा है क्योंकि मेरे हस्बैंड के sperm morphology abnormal थी. इसके लिए तो एक ही solution है, IVF करो. ठीक है, IVF करेंगे, आपके पास ही करेंगे. You're such a good doctor, आपने डायग्नोसिस बनाया. तो 100 में से 10 तो आएंगे जो तुम्हारी जाल में फंस जाएंगे. Who cares about the 90? This is enough to keep you busy. So you do the IVF for them. Which is the best way of having high IVF success rates, Kushal? You do IVF for patients who don't need it. Now you have a 25-year-old woman who's been married for 1 year. She mostly would have got pregnant in a bedroom if you'd given her enough time. You did the semen analysis and you lied and you said it was teratospermia. So now you did IVF for her and she got pregnant. So what is she going to go and tell 10 other people? अरे यार ये IVF डॉक्टर बहुत अच्छा है, इसके तो सक्सेस रेट्स इतने हाई है. So you do a lot of these rubbish IVF cycles for ones who didn't need it. So your reputation keeps on increasing and stuff like that. Whereas you're doing all crap all the time because you're not providing any document. And patients don't know any better. उनका ट्यूबलाइट कब चमकता है? After they've failed 2 IVF cycles. Why 2? Because all these clinics provide a package. We will do 2 cycles because एक बार करो, फिर second को discount जो भी कुछ दे दो, and देखो 2 किए कुछ हुआ नहीं, and then what the patient feels, हाँ ये तो डॉक्टर मेरी केस जानता है, let me do this, let me do that. So anyway, so we see a lot of these patients and this is what they're doing. And it's become such a racket. And half my life is just spent educating patients. And therefore, what do we do? No one believes me, and that's also fine. So disgruntled doctor just says all nasty things about other doctors, just trying to be competitive stuff. I said, fine, don't believe me. But here is the ESHRE report. This is a European organization. This is a list of all the useless add-on tests, which all IVF clinics in India prescribe these tests. So they over-test, they abuse these tests, they abuse the treatments, they just, like I said, patient to sab gade hai, unko kya samajhta hai? Karo, take them for a ride, koi bhi maan lega. And the worst thing is, you go to a second opinion, to a second IVF clinic, and what will that second IVF doctor do? That second IVF clinic is not Dr. Malpani. That second IVF clinic will say, first IVF clinic चोर है, तू मेरे पास आ, मैं तेरे लिए ये टेस्ट करूंगा, मैं तेरे लिए करूंगा. तो बेचारा पेशेंट ने तो बोला, देखो मुझको बोला सेकंड ओपिनियन लो, मैंने सेकंड ओपिनियन लिया, सेकंड डॉक्टर ने भी वही चीज बोली, तो मैं यहाँ IVF करूंगी या whatever else and stuff like that. But let me give you another example. This is another PIL we filed, just to give you some background. When the IVF regulation was introduced, it was introduced with good intent because there was so much commercialization. All those celebrities who were getting surrogacy done left, right, and center, and all these women were being exploited completely unfairly. So some regulation was required. So they introduced a regulation. Now, in order to regulate, you set up a national board where you appoint a gynecologist. So they appointed an embryologist. You know who the embryologist on that national ART board is? It's a chemical engineer, a guy called Dr. Murdia, who's the director of Indira IVF. Just imagine the amount of conflict of interest that you are appointing a PE chain funded director who's not an embryologist, who agrees by his own account that I'm a chemical engineer. I've been a chemical engineer for 15 years. Work for Schlumberger, incidentally. It's on his LinkedIn page. You've appointed him as an embryologist. Now, you tell me. Obviously, a lot of political meddling must be connected to some health minister or something or the other. Isko board ke upar dal do. We filed this a year ago. Hasn't come up for hearing yet. Hopefully at some. But this gets my good. This angers me that we're meant to be protecting our patients. We're meant to be providing high quality care. How can you provide high quality care when you get away with this? Now, if you appoint this guy as on the board, obviously he's going to get invited to all these ART conferences. What do you think he's going to do in all these ART conferences? He's going to sell whatever he wants. Just terrible.
If you learned something new from this video, do share it with your friends and subscribe to this channel so that we can bring you the best content possible. Also, if you want to watch this entire episode, click on the link in the description box and you can go to Kushal Lodha YouTube channel and watch the entire podcast episode. Thank you so much for watching this and have an amazing day.